Hi, everybody. My name is Cecil Konijnendijk, and I'm a director with the Nature-Based Solutions Institute. And I'm really happy that I'm part of this session. Thanks, Amos, for inviting me. So I would like to introduce to you a very simple, but also evidence-based rule that can help us green our cities and make them healthier and happier. The so-called 330-300 rule that we introduced early last year. And the idea really here is to create equitable urban greening for community health and wellness. So there's quite some evidence these days, of course, on the benefits of urban trees, as well as urban nature in general. And some of these benefits, or many of these benefits, relate very much to things like climate adaptation, cooling effect of trees, for example, but also helping us in general to make more comfortable cities, but also public health focus. So we know that being in with trees, seeing trees, using green spaces is good for our mental health, our physical health, as well as for our social health and well-being. The chance of meeting people, spending time with people outside in green spaces. And it's not only about canopy cover, for example, that cools the areas around us, but it's also about seeing green, being able to see green from the places where we live, we work, and we study. And living amongst green and seeing green actually has tremendous impacts on our mental health, creativity, our performance, our happiness. Then, of course, it's also really important that access to trees and green space is not just reserved to a happy few. And today, in many of our cities, there's a very big inequity, you could say, in how people have access to green space or actually have canopy cover in the neighborhoods. So this has to be much more equitable and fair. And actually, municipalities and organizations, government organizations, international organizations, not-for-profits, etc., they're really in their efforts to green cities have called for clearer guidance, for clearer rules or guidelines that can help them as they try to plant more trees, take better care of their trees, and make cities greener and more resilient. So in response to this, we at the Nature-Based Solutions Institute launched this new 330-300 rule in February of 2021. And it's a very simple rule, but it has very clear rooting in the evidence, in the best research that we have available today on the benefits of trees and green space, especially when it comes to climate adaptation and public health. So what does this rule say? Well, you can already see it here in the little diagram. Right? So everybody should actually have visual access, should be able to see trees from their window, from their place of residence, from the place where they study, or the places where they work. And this is really a proxy, you can say, for the importance that we know visible green has. So if we have a chance to see green, we actually feel better. We have a better mental health. Studies have shown that actually workers, for example, office workers, creative workers, feel better and perform better when they see green spaces. And the same in places of study. Children, for example, that study in green school environments do better than those that don't have green around them. So this visible green and the idea of seeing a few trees, in this case, 3 trees from your window, is the first part of this rule. Then second, and this is also being supported by quite some research, every neighborhood should have at least 30% urban tree canopy cover. And we know from work, from studies, that actually we should almost go up higher than 30% to get real cooling effects, maybe up to 40% in our neighborhoods. But there's quite some work on the mental health benefits and general health benefits. It says, well, when we reach that 30% at neighborhood level, we really see some strong health benefits kick in. And actually quite a few cities in the world have now set ambitions of having 30% or higher canopy cover. But it's really not the idea not to do this at city level, but rather at neighborhood level. So we make sure that every single neighborhood meets the target. And then finally, and this has also been well documented in research, as well as being advised by organizations like the World Health Organization, everybody should have access to a good public green space, a high quality public green space, such as a small park within 300 meters, so it's a bit more than 300 yards of their residence. And again, this has really been well documented. So how does this look? Well, here in Barcelona, where I'm based, I can see more than 3 trees from my window. Some of them are a bit small. I would rather see some more well-established trees. The canopy cover in our neighborhood is not that bad, although we probably won't reach 30%. And then if I walk about 5 minutes, about 300 meters, I come to this beautiful green boulevard here in Barcelona, which is there for traffic, right? But actually also has a very wide linear park on both sides where people can sit, people can play. There's place for exercise, but there's also things like stormwater regulation and cooling and biodiversity values. So just to show some of the evidence behind the 330-300, So the one thing I already mentioned is this idea of visible green, which has been a bit understudied and underappreciated so far. We have tended to focus on canopy cover and on urban green spaces such as parks, but we know actually that seeing green in the form of trees, for example, really has this high impact on our health and well-being. And more studies are actually showing that. Then I already mentioned the idea of canopy cover, where studies by Professor Thomas Astelbert and colleagues in Australia especially have been able to demonstrate that 30% greenness or canopy cover in the neighborhood is related to a big range of different health benefits. And we should really go up to that 30% before those benefits start really kicking in. And then finally, we also know that living less than 300 meters from a park will actually mean that people use those parks and green spaces much more frequently than if they are farther away, for example, a kilometer. And this, of course, means that if people use those spaces, they're in better physical health, better general health. And this has been illustrated by studies like this one in Denmark, where they really found a clear 300-meter threshold. And this last research has really influenced some of the guidance that we see now. For example, the World Health Organization is recommending a 300-meter maximum distance to a nearby green space. But actually also organizations, for example, the United Kingdom are calling for good access. In this case, for example, 300 meters from an area that is at least 2 hectares. So is that 4 or 5 acres? So there's really some guidance developing around that access to usable multifunctional green space. So I've been pretty excited about this development because the idea of 330-300, of course, is first of all, it's evidence-based, it's clear and easy to remember, and it's really catchy, like this thing with trees and trees, there's something to it. So as soon as it was launched, it was really picked up, and it became a viral thing that people started saying, oh, this has been around forever. And if you Google it now and you Google 330-300, you'll actually see it's ranked all the way up there with some other existing 330-300 rules, for example, for building occupancy. So give it a try. But actually several organizations, from Greenpeace Spain to United Nations organizations to cities across the world, have actually started formally adopting 330-300 as part of their urban forestry plan, their sustainability plans, to really show their ambition in greening their cities. And of course, this has to be done carefully because it's not just about the numbers, it's not about the quantity alone, but it's really, of course, about the quality as well. Tree species diversity, really try to see what are the appropriate trees for this community, involving local communities and build stewardship as well. And just to show you that this is not really completely out of the blue, the city of Frederiksberg, which is situated in the Copenhagen area of Denmark, has already had for a few years in its tree policy, its træpolitik, as you can see here, the statement that one should be able to see at least 1 tree from each residence in the city. And actually they already were up to over 90%, I think, of people who could actually see that. But we definitely have to go further, I would say, than just 1 tree. We should be more ambitious in this case. And that we still have a way to go is illustrated by this study done by Cobra Groeninzicht, a consultancy company that looked at my home country, the Netherlands, and looked at neighborhoods in the Netherlands, and seeing if they met the 30% canopy cover. And as you see, unfortunately, and these are the green areas, only very few areas in the more affluent part of the country meet this 30% target. Most cities are far below it. Most neighborhoods are far below it. And I think the average for the Netherlands now is 16%, 16%, so about halfway up to 30%. So I hope you're interested in 330-300 and you feel that this is something maybe you want to work with. It is definitely causing quite stirring up quite some debate and discussion about the importance of trees and how we can use simple rules like this. We're doing a course as well if you're interested. There's some information here on this slide. It will be in February of this year. But otherwise, I would like to thank you for your attention and I hope you enjoy the rest of the session as well.